In South Africa, telling the truth about corruption can be a death sentence. The example of that is for hardworking South Africans who chose to speak truth to power, exposing corruption and wrongdoing in government and state-owned companies, reporting fraud, flagging irregular tenders, documenting criminal syndicates looting from public funds. Their killers used the same playbook: surveillance, death threats, hired assassins, and bullets fired in broad daylight. In some cases, arrests were made, and in others, convictions even followed. But in almost every single one of these cases, the powerful figures who order the hits, the mastermind, remain largely untouched, protected by political connections, police corruption, and a justice system that seems designed to fail those who dare challenge the powerful. This is the story of 4 South African whistleblowers who paid the ultimate price for speaking against corruption. Let's get into it. The first story that we are looking at is that of engineer Armand Swart. Armand Swart was 30 years old at the time of his murder. He was married and had a child, so he was a family man with his life ahead of him. He was an engineer at QTech Engineering Company in Vereeniging. But here's the tragic twist to Armand's story. He wasn't actually even the whistleblower. He was murdered by mistake. The real whistleblower was a colleague of his at QTech, someone who had flagged massive irregularities in Transnet contracts. Here's what QTech's role was in those contracts. So QTech was a seller selling to a middleman that then sold to Transnet. So QTech did not have a contract with Transnet. The person who had a contract with Transnet was Lucky Molefe, the nephew of Katiso Molefe, who will come up a bit later in the story. Lucky's company bought springs from QTech and sold those springs to Transnet. They bought one spring at 390 and sold each spring to Transnet at the highly inflated price of 151 rands. When the whistleblower at QTech made this discovery, he confronted Lucky, informing him that he intends to inform Transnet about these irregularities, about this fraud in the next couple of days if Lucky does not come up with an explanation. Armand Swart was simply the wrong man in the wrong place at the wrong time. Professional hitmen had been sent to silence the whistleblower, but instead, through mistaken identity, had killed Armand. On the morning of the 17th of April, 2024, Armand Swart arrived at his workplace at around 6:30 in the morning. As he pulled up at the gate outside QTech premises, a white Hyundai i20 pulled up alongside him. The occupants opened fire. Armand was shot 23 times with a rifle, later identified as an AK-47. He sustained multiple gunshot wounds and was declared dead on the scene. His body slumped in the driver's seat of his own vehicle. The killing sent shock waves through the Vaal community, and within hours, 3 suspects were arrested. The investigation into Armand's murder has revealed one of the most chilling aspects of South Africa's assassination crisis: the involvement of 7 police officers in contract killings. CCTV footage from QTech and other businesses nearby QTech led police on the trail of the Hyundai i20 until it led them to the area of Q in Johannesburg near Bramley and Alexander. Upon arrival at the premises in Q, police found 2 men who were immediately treated as suspects. Michael Buletau, a police detective from Johannesburg Central SAPS, as well as Musake Kana, who was the owner of the property in which the 2 men were found. Tau was quick to identify himself as a police officer and told the police that he knew nothing about what had taken place that morning. He was only there to see his friend, the owner of the place, who is Musake Kana. Outside the gate was Michael Puletau's Mercedes-Benz Viano, which the police searched and found spent cartridges of a rifle, 15 spent cartridges in total. And when he was asked what the spent cartridges were for, the detective indicated that they belonged to his brother, who was a game hunter who had been using the vehicle. Also in that vehicle, police found number plates that would later be linked to another vehicle. Inside the I-20, police found what would later be identified as the murder weapon, an AK-47. So the two men were arrested. However, they were not the only two that police were in search of based on what police observed on the CCTV. The footage also showed a Mercedes-Benz C200 driving up and down the same street a couple of times every hour from about 4 in the morning to around 6:30 when the murder occurred. In addition, police also found footage of a white Mercedes-Benz Viano, which was later confirmed to belong to Puletau, driving around the area of QTech premises days prior to the murder. Police therefore also went on a manhunt for the driver of the C200, and to their luck, the driver, Diego Floyd Mabusela, had a puncture that led to the rim of his car being damaged, and police found and arrested him on R59, not very far from Vereeniging. This was also on the day of the murder of Armand Swart. What police then also discovered was that the number plate that had been found in Michael Puletau's Viano was the correct number plate for this C200. But at the time of the commission of the crime, the C200 had been fitted with fake number plates, so therefore able to tie the three men together as well as to the crime. In addition, police also found that the I-20 that was used in the murder had been a hijacked vehicle, which had been hijacked in January 2024 and fitted with duplicate number plates belonging to an elderly woman. The bulk of the evidence in this case was heard at the Madlanga Commission, a commission of inquiry probing corruption, political interference, and criminal infiltration in the police, intelligence, prosecution, and the judiciary. Witnesses at the Madlanga Commission, Witness A and Witness B, who are investigators whose identities are protected and who now live in safe houses, have provided detailed testimony to the commission regarding this Armand Swart's murder case. According to their testimony, the murder was orchestrated allegedly by Katiso TK Molefe, alleged underworld kingpin and businessman with ties to organized crime syndicates. Just 5 days before Armand Swart's murder, on the 12th of April 2024, Molefe allegedly called police officer Michael Puletau and they spoke for about 2 minutes. Then Tau called Molefe back on the same day and then arrived at Molefe's luxury residence in Sandhurst shortly after midday of the same day. Later that afternoon, Tau requested the name of the company via WhatsApp. So he sent Molefe a message saying, "What is the name of that company again?" To which Molefe simply responded by saying, QTech. The timeline was damning because on the same day that Katiso Molefe had contacted Michael Puletau and Michael Puletau had gone to the home of Katiso Molefe, this was also on the same day that Lucky Molefe, remember he is Katiso Molefe's nephew and the owner of SK Group, the company that is allegedly selling springs at highly inflated amounts to Transnet, was cornered on the same day by the QTech employee who informed him that he needed an explanation from him or he would be reporting the company to Transnet in the next couple of days. So by the look of it, allegedly, everything moved from that day as instead of sorting out his issues or coming up with a plan of getting out of this one, Lucky Molefe allegedly went to his uncle, Katiso Molefe, seeking a solution for this. And of course, allegedly, Katiso Molefe would contract Detective Michael Puletau and 2 other hitmen to go and kill who they believed was the whistleblower. Over the next 5 days, the MEDA team conducted scouting missions near QTech, profiling what they believed to be the whistleblower. Phone location data, vehicle tracking data, and CCTV footage captured all their movements. Even on the 12th, when Michael Puletau went to go meet with Katiso Molefe, the 2 of them drove together in Molefe's car, allegedly from Molefe's home in Sandhurst to Vereeniging, where they went to go and see the premises of QTech. Cell phone towers point to the 2 of them near QTech premises in Vereeniging and then back together at Katiso Molefe's house. On the morning of the 17th of April, Tau sent a message on WhatsApp at about 8:17 a.m. stating, "Morning abuti, re sharpone," meaning, "Morning brother, we are fine." Investigators believe this was code, confirming that the hitmen were clear and not apprehended. It further suggests that this would have been after the arrival of Puletau and Kekana back in Q, having committed the murder some 2 hours prior. This is how we know from witness A and witness B how Armand Swart's identity became confused with the whistleblower. According to witness B, Lucky Molefe would have given his uncle the name and cell phone number of the suspected QTech whistleblower. Upon this, Katiso Molefe allegedly would have given this information to Michael Puletau. And then Michael Puletau took this information, gave this number to his girlfriend Lerato, and asked her to, in his words, in a WhatsApp message, he says to her, "Here's the number and name. I want you to do your IEC magic. I want you to find out information." I don't know if she worked for IEC or what that was code for, but he wanted her to look for information about the suspected whistleblower. A few minutes later, Lerato replies to Michael Puletau with a photograph of QTech employees saying, "I guess this is them." And that is the information that Michael Puletau used to track down and murder Armand Swart. So the 3, Michael Puletau, Musa Kekana, and Floyd Diego Mabusela, were arrested on the day of the murder, while the suspected mastermind, Katiso TK Molefe, was later arrested in December 2024 at a luxury property in Sandhurst, while his nephew, Lucky Molefe, is still at large, even after multiple police operations to try and catch him in different provinces in the country. He has been missing since December 2024. During a raid at Katiso Molefe's Sandhurst mansion, authorities discovered a trove of sensitive documents, company registration papers, tender applications linked to Transnet, and files related to SK Group. One particularly damning piece of evidence was a page filled with repeated signatures, as if one had been practicing forgeries. In addition, police now also believe that although SK Group was registered to his nephew, Lucky Molefe, it seemed that the real mastermind behind the company and the fraud on Transnet was Katiso Molefe himself. This is in part because all the money coming from Transnet to SK Group was paid into the account of Katiso Molefe's son, Thapelo Molefe, and not his nephew, Lucky Molefe. And even then, Thapelo Molefe was only paid 30,000 rands when the money that came in was millions of rands. And he would have transferred, police believe, the bulk of that money to his father. But it was also Thapelo Molefe who paid salaries of employees, including paying Lucky Molefe, the so-called director to SK Group, was being paid by someone else in the company. Forensic analysts also revealed that the same AK-47 used in Armand Swart's murder was also used in the 2022 assassination of DJ Somebody, whose real name was Oupa Sefoka, and at least 10 other killings, including that of DJ Vintos and Don Tingleni. This confirmed to investigators that they were dealing with a highly sophisticated, highly coordinated syndicate, not an isolated hit. Molefe has denied all wrongdoing, and although his bail was initially denied, he was later granted bail of 400,000 in October 2025 after an appeal. This is despite the state arguing that he was a flight risk with substantial resources and criminal connections. Witness A, in fact, testified at the Madlanga Commission that during the bail hearing, it appeared that the ruling was pre-concluded, with the judge showing little to no interest in the prosecutor's submissions and even assisting Molefe's defense counsel in the bail application. The Madlanga Commission has revealed many allegations of police interference with this particular case, including the alleged involvement of police generals in senior positions in the South African police services. In addition, the witnesses have also suggested that the judge who granted bail to Molefe may have been paid the amount of 2 million rands for his role in releasing Molefe. However, at this point, that remains an allegation. The case against Molefe also remains an allegation, and it remains to be seen who is going to be held accountable, if anyone at all is going to be held accountable for the murder of Armand Swart. That is it for today's video. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, which is sure to generate an interesting debate about this topic of whistleblowing in South Africa. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you in the next one.